Hi, welcome back to another video. And today I'll be talking about the 2026 North Carolina Senate race that has gotten a lot of tension within the past couple weeks and even the past month. And this is going to be a Senate race where I believe so far, as of July of 2025, that I believe this will probably be the closest Senate race within the 2026 election cycle. Now, there are other races that you can point to make an argument where, those races can be more competitive or much more competitive than North Carolina. Obviously, being Georgia for Democrats, that's going to be the very vulnerable one. Or you could do Maine for Republicans. But I think this North Carolina Senate race here for Republicans is going to be the most competitive because at least within Georgia and Maine, you have Republican incumbents that are probably, or no, you have Senate incumbents, Democrat and Republican, who are going to run again, who are also, have more of a better shot than what's going to be happening in North Carolina with Republicans. Republicans have a much bigger problem than North Carolina, than Maine, or anywhere else in the map, honestly, because of their incumbent problem. Because John Tillis, who is no longer going to be running for re-election, he has, announced that he is not going to be running again for Senate, and that opens a really big problem for the Republicans in North Carolina. Now, there's been a lot of talks for if John Tillis was going to run for re-election. The race was probably going to be competitive, and I thought that either John Tillis loses by a small margin or he squeaks it out. And I was, going more favorably towards, him squeaking out a win, that he was going to win re-election. But with the recent, Senate voting, his clashes with Trump, and then eventually announcing that he was not going to run for re-election again, it's not looking good for Republicans. And now, of course, if you're the Democrats, you're going to want to immediately throw in Roy Cooper, the former governor, who was very popular. He won two terms in 2016, 2020. And yeah, he's very popular, and he's probably the strongest candidate the Democrats can put up. But Republicans right now are facing a crisis within the Senate election because they don't really have a candidate right now. I mean, obviously, there's been names that have been thrown around, especially Laura Trump, which, in my opinion, would probably be a very, very weak candidate for the Republicans. But still, until we see some, actual polling or data numbers to, really prove that point there, you just don't know. You just don't know. But as of right now, there isn't really a candidate that Republicans can put up right now, other than John Tillis, who isn't running for re-election, that they can say that, yes, this is a safe, strong candidate that could help us keep this Senate race. Now, obviously, you have a declared candidate, Don Brown. He's an attorney offer and candidate for North Carolina's 8th Congressional District in 2024. You also have Andy Nelson, who's a teacher assistant. Both of these people do not have name recognition at all. Going into this, you probably are scratching your head right now, not knowing who these people are, compared to Laura Trump, who formerly was the co-chair of the Republican National Committee through 2024 and 2025, and is the daughter-in-law of the President of the United States, Donald Trump. So obviously, if you are a Republican voter, or just, maybe just some registered voter within North Carolina, maybe you're not even registered to a party at all, and you are probably going to know who Laura Trump is, and you're either going to really like her, or you're really not going to like her. And with the way President Trump's approval rating has been going very recently, if it sinks by this time, right, if this sinks or continues to sink, as of right now, his approval rating is in the hot water. It's at -4 right now. Obviously not as bad as what it was before, but still not good for President Trump. Now, his approval rating is lower than what President Biden's was, and even lower than what Trump's approval rating was, 8 years ago today, or, whatever. But if Trump's approval rating, if his popularity sinks anymore, if Trump becomes very, very unpopular towards the midterms, obviously, Republican candidates are going to do what Democrats were doing in 2022, where they tried to distance themselves from their very unpopular incumbent president. And I think that's going to happen this time. As, if President Trump, continues to become more and more unpopular. His disapproval rating is already back up at 50%. His approval is already sinking down to 46%, but it's being kind of stagnant. It really isn't, it's not surging, but it's also really not declining at a really quick rate here. So right now we're really not seeing any growth or decline within either the approval rating or the disapproval rating, which will probably continue unless something really big happens. Like, of course, this was the amount of tariffs President Trump put on all those countries back in April, and you can really see the disapproval surge and the approval decline very, very quickly. Peaking at -7 points, which eventually, after that all that was resolved, they kind of just went back to normal, right? The disapproval declined, the approval surged just for a little bit, and then they were stuck at -2. And now recently, where there's more tariff talks, right? There's more tariffs on Japan, on Vietnam, and all these other countries. So we'll see if that's what is moving this disapproval up. As you can see, it's gone from 49 back up to 50%. We'll see if it moves, if it goes up more, if it doesn't, or whatever happens. But my point here is that if President Trump becomes more unpopular, and Republicans decide to hypothetically nominate Laura Trump, right? She becomes the nominee for the Senate race. You put a candidate with the name Trump behind them during a midterm election year where if the president becomes even more unpopular, how do you think the people of North Carolina in a Senate race are going to be feeling about a possible candidate that could be their senator that is the family of Donald Trump? Now, I'm not saying that, right, Laura Trump is going to become the nominee. It really, as of right now, is very uncertain on who's going to be the Republican nominee. I think, as of right now, the Democratic nominee is going to be Roy Cooper. That is the strongest candidate they could put up. For the Democratic primary, right, we already have declared candidates. We have a representative from North Carolina Congressional District, but I think you run into the same problem Republicans are running into, is no name recognition. Compared to Roy Cooper, who would certainly get, or has that name recognition. Where if you put him up, obviously people from North Carolina are going to go, oh, hey, I remember him. And they're probably going to vote for him because, they remember him. And either, especially if it's a Democratic primary, they are going to support him. He is the popular former governor of North Carolina who, left office, and of course Democrats probably will vote for him, and I predict that Roy Cooper will probably become the Democratic nominee unless Democrats find somebody else who is just as better or just as good or maybe better, but I honestly doubt it, and I think Roy Cooper probably is going to become the Democrat nominee. I don't think there's going to be much contest in this primary. However, for Republicans, it is looking pretty uncertain and not good. Because so far, the only candidate here, whenever you go through declared, filed paperwork, or express interest, the only candidate here I think would actually get name recognition is Lord Trump. And I don't think it'd be the good type of name recognition you probably want, especially if the president, right, becomes more unpopular within the next year. And obviously we have Thom Tillis, who is not going to be running for re-election. But yeah, it really does come down to name recognition. We have seen this time and time again. Last year with the West Virginia Senate race, when you saw the former governor easily win that Senate race. So yes, name recognition matters here. And I think it is either going to hurt or help Laura Trump if she decides to run in the primary. I think that, if any Republicans try to challenge Laura Trump, it will be because they think that she doesn't have what it takes to win the election. And I think that if she does run, you're going to see a lot of support from the Trump family. You're going to see a lot of Republican super PACs try and back her and, try and make her the nominee and help her win. And I think that if that would happen, she'd probably lose the general election. She would lose it by at least 5 points, 5 to 6 points. So yeah, this primary is not looking good for Republicans at all. Very, very, very uncertain here. We still have a lot of other candidates here. Look at this. We have Dan Bishop. We have Pat Harrington. We have all these other people. Tim Moore, Representative Michael Wheatley. We have all these people. So far, Tom Willis has, declined. Mark Robinson has declined, who, ran for governor last year and lost by a very large margin. We also have Mark Walker, who has declined. And so far, we have endorsements, right? So far, Don Brown has got the endorsement of Mark Robinson. Actually, that's probably not an endorsement he wants, but as Republican, still good. Thom Tillis, who has withdrawn, he got endorsements from an insane amount of Republican U.S. senators here. Jim Bakes, John Barrasso, Marsha Blackburn, Josh Boozman, Ted Budd, every single other Republican senator you could probably think of did endorse Thom Tillis to run again. Also, even AIPAC endorsed him. But, he's not going to be running now. So that really makes this, field very, very uncertain for for this Republican primary, and it's going to be very interesting to see what candidates jump in, what candidates don't, and how it goes. And once again, I do expect the Democratic primary not to be that interesting or competitive at all. I think Roy Cooper could probably run unopposed because honestly, it's the best candidate for Democrats to put up, and I think they're going to do it. I think Roy Cooper's going to jump in. There's been a lot of, close sources that say he's going to do it. He's probably going to do it within the next, couple weeks or maybe a couple months. But yeah, expect for him to jump in the race. I think he will. I think he'll become the Democratic nominee, although very, very uncertain on who the Republican primary nominee is going to be. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of candidates we have to watch out for to see who jumps in this race, who doesn't jump in the race, and what happens next. Maybe President Trump makes a decision on who to back or who not to back. So yeah, there's still a lot more to go, and I'll make videos and updates on whatever else happens. But anyways, that is the video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video.